welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad you found us. And if you've been here before, we're glad you're back. Today, I've got a fun story for you. Being that it's January of 21, we have a whole bunch of interview shows coming up here shortly, but we're having to accommodate people's holiday schedule and getting back into the swing of things. So it's going to be a fun one today. I think you'll laugh, and so you might chuckle, and it's an interesting story. But before we do that, a little bit of house cleaning. If you are following us on social media, please hit the subscribe button. We try to do our best to let you be alerted when there is a new episode. And we are now syndicated on over 23 distribution platforms. So from the big ones, from iHeart, Pandora, Amazon Music, Apple, you name them. We're all over the place, and on social media, YouTube, Parler, Facebook, etc. So wherever you are, we hope to be able to make it easy for you to participate with us. And then one last thing before we get started today, I want to thank our friends and sponsors over at Wealth Management Group. I love these guys. They're not just guys that are selling you a product. They actually look at your financial needs, goals, and they help you get the right type of solutions to manage your finances and get you set for retirement. They're just fantastic. Their website is wealthmanagement.estate. That's wealthmanagement.estate. And always, you can find us, because we always host each show on the rexandrewshow.com website. Okay, well, today is another one of the Driving You Crazies series. What I call and refer to is my research period of time when business partner and I, early on in the Uber and Lyft days, were looking at building a competitive app. Now, one of my background experiences is built about 1,100 mobile applications for all kinds of different companies and organizations. And so we thought, maybe we could take a look around. So what we would do is research, what the customer experience was and all that kind of stuff. So this one is I'm too drunk to know where I live. So it was a Saturday night, and it was in the springtime. I did a little over 1,000 trips as we were doing research, and I did those on Uber and then in taxi also, trying to understand what the needs are, because they're slightly different audiences. So it was a weekend night, and I believe it was a Friday night, and I got summoned over to an area in kind of central Denver that was it was a bar. And I don't think it was much more than about midnight kind of thing. And on weekend nights, that's where you made your money, was, out on the weekends. So we did quite a bit of that work during the day, go out at night, see what we could figure out. So I got summoned over to pick up a bar, and this guy's name was Jose on the request. Now, this was in a taxi, so its app were much more rudimentary and crude than say Uber or Lyft, and you'll understand in a minute. So I pull up to the bar, and I make a phone call, and it actually was the bar's phone number, not the patron. So it wasn't Jose's phone. So they said, we'll bring him right out. All right, so I'm waiting there, and out the door comes two guys pretty much sort of carrying him towards the van. Now, here's the crazy thing. When you're watching football and someone gets hurt, they've got a leg injury, and they'll have two coaches come out, or two medics or trainers or whoever, and each person will put an arm of the injured player over their shoulder, and they'll basically hobble them off the field with a person on each side. Well, that's how Jose got out to the van. Now, I was pulled up so the passenger side was out towards the street. The driver's side was closer to the bar. So they opened up and slid open the door and basically kind of threw Jose into the back seat of the van. So I had electric door closers, so I closed the door, and I asked him, what's the address? Because it was all scrambled on their app, and I couldn't tell. And so I quickly figured out that he didn't speak a word of English. Gonna take a quick drink. And so We struggled for a few minutes trying to get an address out of him. And I hadn't thought about it at the time of asking for his driver's license, but that's later on in the story. So he gives me an address, and it is clear across town, at least 30, 40 minutes. So I'm like, fine. So he sits back. Now, Jose was immaculately dressed. He was probably in his mid-60s. He wore a fedora, dressed to the T's, necklaces, not earrings, but rings. He had a lot of cologne on. So he was a put together guy. So I kind of figured, hey, the guy just maybe out and tied one on for his birthday or something. Because he wasn't looking like some sort of slouch that, had drunk some wine and went to the bar for a few. No, he was somebody that was put together. So we drove the half hour out in that other side of town. And along the way, he kept saying, no, this is not it. No. Well, he was drunk and he was incoherent. He wasn't speaking English. He was, rattling stuff off at me in Spanish. I didn't understand any Spanish, so we just kept going to the destination. Well, the GPS shows and got there. And remember, GPS isn't always accurate. So we get there, the location, and it's a dirt lot. It's not a house, not an apartment complex, not a business, not a parking garage. Heck, it wasn't even a porta potty. It was a dirt lot. So now I'm frustrated, and the fare is around $45, $50 in this range. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I leaned back over and I asked him, are you sure this is the right place? He's no, shaking his head. So I asked him, and we broke in communications between the two of us to get out his driver's license. So he gets out his driver's license and he shows it to me. And it was about 1.5 miles from where I picked him up. So now I decided, well, I'm not going to cut the fare. I mean, my time is money on this. We're learning. So turn the vehicle around and we head back to the other side of town. And we get there and open up the door, and he realizes at this point in time he doesn't have his keys. Now, the bar, in their wisdom and protecting themselves and liability, took his keys from him, because the last thing they want people to do is go home in a cab or an Uber with their keys and then come back and get the vehicle. So they really are careful about doing that. So the problem we had here is that it is a senior living center with a front door lobby, one entrance that was locked. So Jose has no keys. So we go through another whole session of broken English and Spanish and trying to translate, finding out that he has no keys and I don't have a way to get him in. Now, maybe I'm just too compassionate. I didn't want to, it was in the early spring, so it was cold at night. I didn't want to just dump him there. I didn't think that was, a reasonable solution. I have grandparents, I have older friends. I wasn't just going to leave the guy there to sleep on the porch and wait for them to open up the door. So I decided I would call dispatch. So by this time, the fare was about $110. And before I called dispatch, I ran his card just to make sure I got paid and we would have the transaction completed before he passed out or something else. So I got out of the van, left the door open, both the side door where the sliding door where he would exit out of the seat and the driver's side door. I walked around to the front of the van in the front corner on the passenger side, mostly so I could make a phone call without them, my conversation with them being heard by Jose, because I didn't want to offend him. And I didn't want to make it sound like I was more panicked than I was, because I didn't know what to do with this guy. So I walk around there and I dial in and I don't get through. It's the middle of the night. It's probably almost 1:15 at this point in time after all this driving. And I'm standing there on hold listening. And all of a sudden I hear that hollow thud. The hollow thud that you hear when someone's head hits a floor or a wall, the thud of a head getting hit. I look around and spin around and come back. Jose's not in the seat. He's on the ground. His fedora is about 4 feet away from him, and he had hit his head on the pavement. So now it goes from bad to worse. I can't get the guy in his place. He's now bleeding. He's incoherently mumbling in Spanish, and it's here, and I want to just get home. I'm like, this is not my career. I didn't sign up for this. I'm just out doing research. I need to go home. So the only thing they can do, and that was the instructions, if you ever had a rider that was injured, you had to call 911. So I call 911, and being that it was a Friday night, they send over quite a bit of equipment. So the first thing to arrive was a full-size fire truck, not just a little paramedic type unit, a full-size fire truck. And there were 4 firemen on the fire truck. And they come up and they sit Jose up, and they didn't just sit him up like on the ground or on the curb. They sit him back up in the van. And I'm thinking, guys, I want to leave. I'm kind of done. I've handed Jose over to you. It's your turn. No, they put him back in the van. So then they're talking to him and examining him. And luckily, one of the guys knew Spanish, and they're talking. Well, the next thing that rolls up is an ambulance. So the ambulance crew comes, and again, Jose's still in the back of the van. So the ambulance crew comes, and they start to attend to him, and they put a bandage on his head, and they talk to him, and they decide that they're going to go ahead and transport him. Well, almost identical in arrival was a Denver police car with 2 officers, and then about 3-4 minutes later, there was another Denver police car with 2 more officers. So for poor Jose, who'd fallen out of the van because he was too drunk, didn't even know his address, we had 4 firemen, 3 paramedics, and 4 police officers. I'm like, I got to get out of here. So I had to take my statements, and then they finally got him out of the vehicle. They had blocked me in the driveway with all of their emergency equipment. So this entire fiasco took almost another hour just to attend to Jose because he was too drunk to remember his address and got his keys. So everybody gets out of the way. I get things buttoned back up. I get back in the van, and I decide, well, I'm going to head home. And I'm just going to call it a night, going to head home. And all of a sudden, the app flashes, and there's a rider that needs availability to get picked up. And it's about 6-7 blocks from me on my way home. And the destination was on my way home. So I thought, this is easy. I'll just do this one last one. Maybe I can turn the good of the evening into something better. But nope, I was wrong. I pulled up into the parking lot of the 7-Eleven, and guess what was there? A fire truck, an ambulance, and 2 more police cars. This time it was a couple who the woman had had a seizure, and they were hauling her off to the hospital, and the husband needed a ride home. Now, it wasn't quite the lengthy stay at the 7-Eleven, but I was like, what are the chances in one evening to have 2 fire trucks, 2 ambulances, and 4 police cars? It was crazy. A total of 22 people in the services for police and first responders to attend to 2 people. 22 to 2. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And luckily, the gentleman didn't live much more than about a mile and a half from that 7-Eleven. I dropped him off, and I said, you know what? I'm done. So I headed home, and I actually took 2 or 3 days off because I just didn't want to deal with this anymore. So you always hear stories about, it's the crazy Uber driver, the crazy taxi driver. And what I came to understand, and it was clear to me in my time of doing the research driving that I was for this app, that it really isn't the crazy drivers, it's the crazy riders. So again, driving you crazies. So So that's the story for today. Got some more coming up, a few more story tells. We start next week to start with the interviews. I'm really excited. So tune in and look for the notifications as we start to expand into the interviews and some of the interesting current topics and some science stuff. It's going to be a fun ride. So welcome to 21, and thanks for joining me today in the Rex Andrews Show.